She drives the empty country lane, singing about her Sally Jane. She turns the wheel and taps the brake, singing a tune for Sally's sake. Oh, round the bend and up the hill, Sally can't sing so merry will. She taps the brake and turns the wheel, singing inside her automobile. She drives the empty country lane, singing about her Sally Jane.
I'm Nemo Hill couldn't be here. I am Rita Book, and
Rita Book. Oh, I remember you. Yeah.
You know, there was a real person, Rita Book.
was there?
Yes,
Here she is.
And here she is again.
I just got 2 minutes ago that everybody's drag names are puns. I'm very slow tonight.
Oh, you just
finally got patio furniture. It's very good.
Right,
Took a
penetration.
while.
So I'm going to read a little introduction. Not that little, but an introduction, and then Mary's going to read. I'm going to begin. Transparency. I told the world the story of my complicated love. Meriam. Sometimes we do not allow a poet the authority to work out solutions to complicated problems on their own, unless they've been granted that authority by some academy. The fact is, a true poet's problems are most often of their own making, and thus the solutions can never be found by the application of any given formula. Poets working on their own, well outside the too often tyrannical parameters of various schools and cliques and doctrines, may well still encounter such challenges to their own authority via critical peer pressure. Many simply fold their cards, either leaving the game or submitting passionlessly to its rules. Few endure, and like Meriam, blossom. Okay, that's all quite a mouthful. And dryly loaded terms like the academy and poetic authority may seem off-putting to some. On first pass, it may sound like I am advocating poetic free-for-all, granting permission to anyone and everyone to simply spill their guts on the page, gifting the ravenous self a rigorless carte blanche and the right to claim absolute personal poetic prerogative. Not at all. As Exhibit A, I present, in defense of personal rigor, the picture of Meriam walking very deliberately up and down a flight of stairs, listening to how her breath rises and falls into the rhythms of iambic pentameter, drilling that natural meter into her unconscious. This is the exercise I remember her recommending to a poet on Eratosphere who seemed to be having trouble locating the meter in language. Arduous discovery is thus integral to personal poetic authority. For only that which one labors to uncover oneself can grant one the confidence needed for self-expression. I am not rejecting poetic history wholesale. I am neither judging the poetic works of the past by modern standards, which would have been incomprehensible to long dead writers, nor making excuses for their admitted blind spots, vast as they may be. Each age has its own work to do, and part of the work of each subsequent age is the adjustment of both their backward and forward-looking lenses. And though my sympathies may lie at times with the long forgotten, those chewed up and spit out beyond the borders of poetic history, I can still appreciate the accomplishments of those center stage. But what I am advocating here is an entirely personal engagement with those past landmarks, be it positive or negative, one that involves an idiosyncratic intimacy with them, rather than a mechanical embrace, an intimacy that questions rather than obeys, one that thus understands the deep necessity of both assent and dissent. Mary and I recognized each other as kindred outsider souls many years ago in the then vital poetic stomping grounds of Erratosphere's online poetry workshop. The place was full of outspoken personalities then, delivering manifestos of the moment, donning various vanishing mantles of authority, which many of us delighted in poking full of holes. The sparks thus generated cast a lot of light into a lot of dark poetic corners. Almost all of us were united in our fascination with the tools of formalism, meter, rhyme, etc. And so there was an academy of sorts, but an academy of one's peers. One that could be both listened to or resisted. Oh, I can't tell you how many times over the years, on behalf of both myself and other poets, I could not hold my tongue and answered inane questions like, why is the tree blue? Or how can a one-legged man run? Or how can a table's legs long for the floor? With the simple and curt reply, because the poet has said so. After participating in all the indisputable intricacies of metrical argument, I couldn't believe that such a basic tenet of the poet's authority could be so violated. We were not amateur scribblers, after all. The Poetry Board's regulars took great pains to point that out, often to the point of self-congratulatory nausea. And so how could we then overlook the fundamental courtesy of allowing poets to make up their own minds about the directions they wanted to launch off into? Outlandish though they may have seemed to some. Even now, after all these years, when I stand up on the sphere for this personal poetic authority, I am often misunderstood, accused of acceding to any poetic hack's trivial flights of fancy. Granted, such rash, single-winged flying exercises are no doubt legion, but I am quite sure I know the difference between rank self-indulgence and unorthodox techniques of aerial navigation. The bottom line is that when I am reading a poet I respect, the first thing I do is surrender to them control of the ship we travel on, allowing them to make their choices as they see fit, accepting the world as they present it to me. Grateful, in fact, to be somewhere other than in my own familiar realm. I give the same latitude to them as I give to Shakespeare or Frost, and am well aware that the awesome anomaly that people discuss ad infinitum in the works of the deceased latter may well be the fatal flaw they object to in the work of the living former. For just as there is something called dream logic, which often breaks the rules of the workaday world, so there is something akin called poetic logic, and I have no doubt that it differs for every poet, perhaps even for every poem. It has been such a joy over the years to watch Mary doing all those things which she shouldn't be able to get away with. And not simply out of exhilaration of storming the academic gates, but because the poems in which she does them demand it of her. And those odd tics and infelicities, which I found a little uncomfortable in her earlier work, how faithfully she has embraced them rather than rejected them, making them more hers, until she has turned them into skillful strokes of very personal genius. The occasional archaisms, the anthropomorphism, the devilishly persistent repetitions, the bold neologisms, the metrical substitutions, then suddenly the lack of metrical substitutions, the full rhyme and the slant rhyme and the no rhyme, the quiet loss of punctuation, each a forbidden gesture that might annoy someone, all set like errant gems in her perfect up and down the stairs grasp of innate meter. I mean, just listen to this. Where I wait in honeysuckle thunder, the sharp alarming cries of crows. A storm approaching never blows my long undone undoing under. I hear sweet, distant mourning doves, nearby woodpeckers' rhythmic tap. Suddenly, leaves stand still in sap, hot sun and sound. I wait for love's hand on my shoulders. Hey, lost one, stuck in the woods, you bird girl leaf who sings and springs without belief. Don't trash it, though. I am not done. At that, the breeze returns and lifts a forest full of greeny gifts. I must confess that I find it difficult to proceed straight through any of Mary's books. Difficult because after reading one poem, I almost always close the book and just sit there, jaw dropped. How does she do it? I find myself asking. And then I answer my own question. She does it by trusting her own voice, a voice which is unlike any other voice.
Yes.
Really, if Mary has had valuable teachers, those poets of the then and of the now are more than equaled by the ever-present nature in which she has made her nest, by the fat raccoon descending frontward down the dying oak, by the loon that makes a V-mark in the mirror lake, by the fattened leaves in summer's breeze, by the sobs of herons, the bee's rage, and the dictionary of owl.
Yes.
She makes much of her solitude in her poetry, often bemoaning it in extravagant fashion, but the fact remains that a poet's vocation is arguably the most solitary of all artists. Poets need not perform nor collaborate, and unlike painters or musicians, the tools of their trade are simple and inexpensive. Just a modest pen and paper will do, and these commodities remain available even to the poorest of souls. And so I come to Exhibit B. Mary Meriam, poor poet, alone in the forest on permanent writer's retreat. Having fled the noise and chaos of urban life decades ago, and settled with a similarly minded soul in a lakeside house in the woods, but without a lover, the seemingly unstoppable momentum of her poverty and her solitude often came to seem like a burden. But if it was something that needed to be carried, the invisible muscle thus strengthened by the long forbearance of that load reveals itself more and more clearly in her poetry. Prayer for a Leaf. The last old leaves have blown away, and I'm alone, undressed and lost, shivering in a new spring breeze beside the lake that laps the shore. Blossom me slowly, bloom me good, and draw my fancy flowers nigh. Maple me softly, oak me strong, and let my close green clothing grow. The unburdening is palpable here, as poet becomes almost synonymous with leaf. The burden of loneliness that seemed to be a part of her very self has grown weightless, been stripped from her, has blown away with the last old leaves, and slowly, goodly, a new soft strength has bequeathed a more ethereal green garment. So the self evolves, its suffering absorbed by nature. And the poet who emerges from this quiet drama can now write with supreme confidence, I told the world the story of my complicated love. Identity is a thorny issue for me, especially in the realm of poetry. And though for Mary it seems initially more straightforward, standing up for the excluded female voice, restoring sound to the silent semaphore of lesbian poets of ages past, and creating a forum, Lavender Review, for lesbian voices of the present, the notion of one's identity, of one's self, undergoes many transformations for a deeply engaged poet. For me, finding the self and losing the self are twin poles of the poet's journey. And Mary seems to me ultimately to have done both, asserting herself in the public forum, losing herself in the forest. It seems counterintuitive to argue for the loss of self to any marginalized individual, to any one of the millions who have experienced not the loss, but the theft of self. Faced with such theft, it is necessary for that self to stand up courageously and be counted. On a certain level, the endlessly echoed pop music aphorism that learning to love yourself is the greatest love of all is a fundamental truth. Yet even the most fundamental of truths can prove alarmingly double-edged. And the stronger one's sense of self becomes, the more relative identity may come to seem, until the undeniable beauty of this self-resurgent, the self-triumphant, runs the risk that the victorious have always encountered, the inflation of self. In truth, it is this inflation of the self that the world has been suffering from for centuries. The white male self has built so many walls that all other selves have remained invisible behind them. But as these walls crumble, and as the dismantling of disenfranchisement proceeds, it is important not to replace one opaque wall with another. For me, the sanity of selfhood lies in its transparency. Self should not be something that stops the eye, but rather something that one sees through, both literally, making visible what lies beyond it, like a window, and figuratively, employing it as a tool for vision, seeing by means of it, as through a pair of spectacles. On a recent Zoom call, discussing, among many other things, rudimentary plans for this reading, Mary wanted to show me the gray hairs on her chin, which she decided to let grow, wondering if I thought they were too weird for the often conservative general public. Who cares? I said. I like them, but I guess I'm weird. All of us are weird, she chimed in. And half jokingly, I suggested that since we were all so weird, we should go whole hog and perform the reading in drag. As has happened often in the past, Mary took my off-the-cuff suggestion and ran through the goalpost with it. Before I knew it, she'd sent out an email to prospective readers asking whether they'd like to participate in our drag Zoom poetry event. I must admit, I had some second thoughts, anxious that the potentially rambunctious drag elements of the reading might get in the way of the seriousness of this little opening essay of mine, an essay I had been thinking about writing for a long time. But as I riff on identity and the transparency of the self, the idea of playing with gender stereotypes during the event now seems quite apt. And so I offer my final exhibit, Exhibit C, a close-up of Mary Meriam's gray chin hairs. Can we get a close-up, Mary?
Yeah, I'll try. Let's see. I don't know, are they visible?
Uh,
Not much, huh?
Yes,
Well,
yes.
Gray doesn't show up very well.
No, they're very clear.
Yeah,
They're
yes,
clear.
they are.
drag,
Mary.
Maybe I don't.
drag, it turns out, can be as simple as that. A gesture as slight as a few human hairs. When I was a new sprung gay youth in San Francisco in the late 70s, I hit upon drag as a way to wrench myself out of my shell. Granted, drag then and drag now are two different animals, transgression having become a shortcut to televised celebrity. And the understandably sensitive politics of transgenderism has complicated what seemed an innocent rebellion to my 20-something self. But think of it like this. We are simply stepping outside our comfort zones here, offering ourselves up as shifting palettes, willingly surrendering our dominant identities. Mary has a poem in Pools of June entitled Trans, a poem that has always struck me as defiantly and wide openly hermetic, a kind of cryptic hymn to liminality, to the moment of passage from one side to the other. I don't even know if it is one of her more successful poems, at least not in the way that success is usually defined in literary terms. In fact, I have resisted trying to clarify its more baffling elements, if only because their inexplicability seems indicative of the mystery of all trans identities. The poem's depths will not be plumbed. Its riddles may have answers, but I am not compelled to fathom. And that fathomlessness, for me, is a cause not for insecurity, but for celebration. And that fathomlessness is, as well, the essence of the poem. It seems a fittingly eccentric way to close out my song of appreciation to the true Countess of the Enchanted Forest of Flatbroke, hairy-chinned Mary Meriam in her gorgeous gown of green leaves. Trans. Drown me now, sailor. Fur, 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 fur. Oh, little white blossom, save me. She misses her mother, has a few surgeries. Now these wings on my back and a mustache. Now she's telling me her dreams and nightmares. Just get off my back. This is my man. Sleepy, erudite, easy. Ooh, bat legs, foxy. No way I will have a birded head. Then she starts blooming into a striped wallflower. No one could look at the brown, blind little creature. Take this red road to Rahway. You will find the sticks. The sticks will be bats. Toss them into the sea. I give you Mary Meriam.
thank
So
you so much. Oh my God, that was so amazing. Really. Thank you, Nemo.
Sure. So you want us to,
Yeah, mute everybody.
how do I do that? You can do it, right? You're a co-host.
I don't know. No.
Mute, select microphone, select a speaker.
Okay, I did it.
Okay.
Okay. I a little bit feeling emotional and speechless right now because it was just such a beautiful essay. Thank you. And thank you all for being here in your incredibly wonderful outfits. My sister called me Lou when I was growing up, and I think looking like a boy and sort of being boyish was a natural state for me. And of course, I live in the natural state now. So it all fits together. So I decided to dedicate this reading to my sister, the memory of my sister, Sally Jane Meriam. And I also thought this morning if I was really going to dress in drag, I would wear a wig and makeup and lipstick and everything, because this is actually natural. This is actually how I dressed my whole life. I started wearing men's clothes in high school, my father's clothes. And and I go to a barber. So actually, I'm sort of like a natural trans person. I'm kind of like an androgynous, kind of like half man, half woman. I wear women's clothes too, also. So anyhow, getting away from that whole thing now, I will go to the poems. And this first one is called Elegy for Sally Jane. Once we played on piano, heart and soul, my sister sitting beside me. Once I rested, almost sleeping, her lap a pillow soothing. Once I had in my hands my sister, flower, song, the paintings she made on bumpy paper. Love and I were adoring her, her sparkling rocks in black light, arrayed like gems in darkness. Don't you see how the once is all I had? Once she fell in a hole of woe, she couldn't save herself, and my love and I fell with her, down and more to below the deepest trouble. Days and nights, how my fingers bled from trying, holding soundless with sightless, love and I in constant once, and the whole world laughing at us. This one's called Forms of Song. Surely the world should live like I live here. This morning's luck of bird to bird, my ear absorbs among the cool and healing trees. After the storm, they sing between the bees. The day rose on our feathers, calm and clear. Isn't the lake the rain that holds no fear? Sometimes it rises, but the crows stay near to keep it far. But which is full of freeze? Surely the world. And if I need your body's voice to dear my day, the shadow lights of waves appear to sound the shore and satisfy my pleas. What hardship grew these trees to make my ease a fleet of tender breezes I can hear? Surely the world. The nerve. I took a trip to death one day, a boat to carry all my pain. The captain said I wouldn't need to bring my shoes or coat, but I should lie here quietly till dead. The waves revolted every nerve. I stood and took my pain and wrecked it shore to shore, my inner artists weaving what they could. I didn't want to die. I wanted more of air and leaves, the loving wind, the crow shining her velvet feathers on my face. I told the captain that I wouldn't go and struggled through a fog to leave that place. But clouds and sea turned into hopeless rain. What little raft I had sank in the pain. This next one is a ghazal that is also ekphrastic because it was done in response to Rattle's ekphrastic challenge thing. And the artist whose work I worked with is by Sarah Jane Croson. Just wanted to mention her name. Hope I got it right. Anyhow, okay, Homemaker. Mother of Earth, conceive the art of home, give birth to jellyfish, the start of home. My drawings screw the seeds to root and grow to green, the frame of every part of home. Didn't she sex the trees from outer space? Wasn't blue-black my counterpart of home? The miles I travel hard until my head is antlered, both the doe and heart of home. I have this reaching after flight, this dress that doesn't fit, fast birds, my heart of home. Dismiss my poverty and build for me a golden house to hang the art of home. She steers the moon, the clouds that lift and roll, the chariot of time, the chart of home. marvel of whales, of mythic storytelling, of seas that never drift apart, of home. Okay, so this is the last one I'll read right now. It's called A Dream. A northwest current cut the heat in half, so cold could bloom and gust in cedar boughs. I sleep with fleece on head and feet, my cat curled in my arms' fleece pit. As midnight bows to early hours, heat of fleece awakes a dream. As walls dissolve, her face appears, as promised once. The trip begins. She shakes my strength. Where do I wait? How many years? I only know the fleece has fled, and she, her body's heat, her body here, through bad valleys too foul for visions, blankets me. Are night and day the sum of dreams I had? But this is true. I see her face to kiss, and so I kiss her. Never wake from this. Thank you. Whew.
So unmute us. Are we unmute? Is everybody unmuted now? No.
We can
Unmute.
unmute ourselves.
Unmute yourselves.
Yeah, unmute yourself.
Unmute yourself.
What a funny thing to say. It's a new way of, a new language. Unmute yourself.
Mute yourself.
Yep.
Excellent. So I think first up is Matt, right?
Yep.
Hey, Mary McLean, you look fantastic. You really went all out for it today, huh? Look at her.
Really?
Every time I see your name at the Sphere, I think, wait a second, is that me? You know, our names are similar.
I know. It's good to meet my fellow Mary at last. Thank you.
Yeah, right. Yeah, the only two Marys in the world. Oh, sorry, Matt, go ahead.
So wondering what William's up to. Anyway,
What?
just wondering what William's up to. Possibly cleaning.
Oh, yeah, I think he was doing the dishes before.
Right.
He was cleaning the shower. He's still cleaning his shower.
Okay. Right. Okay. If you don't, I think there's some people here I don't know. I am Matt. That is actually my real name. So yeah, I first came across Mary's poetry. It was coming up for about 10 years ago when I joined the Sphere. So I've been reading her poems for quite some time, and yeah, I've been a fan of her work for the same length of time, really, since I started reading it. She's also someone who I feel like I've learned from as a poet, from reading her stuff. I think from those tics that Nemo was talking about, if that's the phrase he used. So yeah, I was really pleased to be asked to read some of Mary's poems tonight. It was hard to narrow this down to 3 poems. The first poem I'm going to read is called Arrive, and it's the last poem in Mary's latest collection, The Balls of June. Okay. Arrive. I move, hoping you will arrive, while the day and season are fresh, and air gushes through the window. I long for your blondness and young, sleek, white silence. It is not enough, my veins are stretching to their limits. Snow marks the upper mountains. Today, early summer, the honey locusts snow on the grass, and I think it is real, and I think it is snow. I do not wish for any other season. Hot air stirs me. You say it is a beautiful night and ask me to go swimming, while I begin the voice that transforms as it goes on. To be most concise is impossible. Like an Italian woman, I spread over the chair out of my clothes. Every day is a treasure. Daylilies sparkle on the dark roadside. An oak with large and fragrant leaves leans out of the forest. You are almost here, I imagine, and you are joyful and giving. Your pale body in the garden makes me weep, as does everything. Is it beauty, the pure water, my lips that finally fill out and sing? You bring water to me in every form. I cry for days, a horse you ride with broken reins. The skies are milky, the stars and your eyes obscure. Out of summer and what we have, a hoe, a hammock, mossy woods, and marshes of lilies. What will we be able to save? Will memory be the green earth? So the next poem I'm reading is Avifauna from Mary's 2013 collection, Hot Word. And when I was looking through the poems in the Lillian trilogy and trying to narrow down my choices, I noticed that what most of the poems in my shortlist had in common was that there was a narrator who longed for a lover, who quite possibly might not be real, just longed for, imagined. The lover might appear in a dream, or be found in a sonnet, or be one of the ladies waiting at the store. I chose Avifauna because it seemed to just sum this up, this theme. Also, it's a lovely song-like ballad. And yeah, I hope I'm pronouncing the title right. Avifauna. Somewhere in the world tonight, someone waits for me. Her red silk slippers of delight, her blue room by the sea, her tangerines, her house of words, her tragedy and play, seem close as all these singing birds, and likewise far away. When I read the first poem, Arrive, I sort of find myself wondering sometimes if it's this lover the narrator is waiting for to arrive. So someone imagined, and I wonder how long the poet's been waiting. Okay, I got the last one is from Girly Calendar from 2014. It's called Open Sea, and it's a triolet. I think good triolets are hard to write. It's tough to get the closing repetition to be more than just a repetition. And I really love how this poem achieves that. It's called Open Sea. Do you ever rendezvous? Would you meet me in the mist, the harbour mist, just me and you? Or do you never rendezvous? The thought itself is too taboo. The literary term is tryst, if you never rendezvous. But would you meet me in the mist? Yeah, I just love the insistent, almost sort of plaintive, insistent note that repetition the close brings. And that's me. Thank you very much for inviting me. Thanks very much, Nemo, for organising this. And thanks for the silent clapping.
Yeah, that's why I thought you could put the sound could stay on, because I don't think there's any weird noises. You're welcome to leave your sound on just so that, if you grunt, the person doesn't feel like they're reading in a vacuum. Marjorie. Mark McDonnell.
You see, I don't have a pun as a name because this is a real person here. Is it my turn?
Yes, it is.
Right. Hello, everybody. Hi, Mary. It's really nice to be doing this. I'm going to say a couple of things before I read the poems. So Mary was the first person to, I'm pretty sure she was the first person to ever call me a poet. And I was at a children's party with my twins about 6 years ago in a bowling alley, and they were about 10 at the time. And she sent me a private message on the Ratosphere about a poem I had on there, and I hadn't been on there. I hadn't been a member for very long, and I was clueless about the poetry world. Didn't know anybody else who wrote poetry or read it, even really. And I don't think we'd ever spoken directly before, but she said something like, "Ignore the critters. Don't change a thing. You're a poet. Trust me, I know about this stuff." And so that was a really significant moment for me, because nobody had ever called me a poet before. People had said nice poem and said nice things about a poem that I'd written. Nobody had ever called me that. And I know there's some nonsense about what that word means, and does it mean anything other than somebody who writes poems, but it felt very significant. And I did trust her. She said, "Trust me," and I did trust her. And I think she knew that it would be significant for me. And it felt like a very warm and generous gesture, but there was something very tough in her tone as well. And it made me sort of warm to her and want to get to know her. And we did get to know each other, and she's, I hope I consider her certainly the best friend that I've never met. So I want to thank you for that, Mary, 6 years ago.
Thanks, Mark. And I honestly was just reacting to your poem. I wasn't thinking about whether you thought you were a poet or anything like that. No.
Do you remember that?
I do, and I
remember me telling you that I was at a children's party.
Yeah, it was only the poem that I was responding to. It wasn't thought about who you are personally. I had no idea, really.
No, I know we barely, I don't think we really knew each other, other than you were a name on the Sphere and I was a fairly new name on the Sphere. I think that was the first time that you'd messaged me.
Yeah, I couldn't.
It's stuck in my mind. And then, you know, afterwards I discovered your poetry and absolutely fell in love with it. So, speaking of which, I'm going to read 3 poems. The first one is Laurel's Leaving, and this is in Pools of June, isn't it? Yeah. Laurel's Leaving. She alone moon howls trees leaves down, fashions a strapless full gown, garlands bare skin with snake greens, culled from neighborhood queens, a hat plucked from holly and fir, then lets those heels that crippled her die at the moss-rich trunk base, coated with white mildew lace, and steps barefoot to the scene on holy ground, arrow clean. She alone leaves sadness for a most curious shutting of the door, a social life in a different town, a myth, a switcheroo, a buckle down. Now she is a tree, unshod, unzipped. She carries greenery, fresh and clipped. Under a moon undergoing eclipse, a whole-hearted she, with a she strips. So the next one is Ars Poetica, which is in the previous book, isn't it? My girl's green jacket. This poem hit me like an absolute ton of bricks, and I read it over and over again when I first discovered it, because I've written a lot of, you know, childhood angst poems, and this just felt like so real, even though our experiences are so different growing up, I suppose. It just hit me like, if I would have written this, or I would have liked to have written this if I was a different person. There was something that just felt like it was me speaking in a different body almost. You know, I could feel the experience. Ars Poetica. She took me home, or what I thought was home, but was in fact a hell she made for us. We left the sound of music with the fuss that I was making, working out my poem in sobs. She asked me what was wrong. I said, I want to be there in the Alps, singing, twirling with her in sunshine. I was clinging to song with nothing real to hold instead. She gave me pain, no comforting the way most mothers do, I guess. And so I wept like no tomorrow, out of love. We left for rainy sidewalks to the car, the day falling in dusk, the pity I had to make, the bleak, deserted street I had to take. And the last one I'm going to read is called Singular Heart, which is in the Lillian trilogy. I think it's in the last book in the Lillian trilogy. I can't remember what the name of the book is. But I love this. I just love the music in it. And I love that you get your surname into it and rhyme it with aquarium. Ooh, little spoiler there. Singular Heart. My heart hurts so, it slides like eels in an aquarium. Sucking its little cage, it feels the slop of Meriam. Weighty and wildebeest, the squeeze of skeleton and time. It hums, a hive of bumblebees, my honey, my sublime. It aches for you. It is the road you rambled on. It pines and croaks and taps a secret code for you. These very lines. Okay, and that's me. Thank you.
Thank you, Marjorie Bedler.
Cheers.
I think Carolyn is next. Yeah.
Okay, I'm in tears, so you'll just have to bear with me. I'm just so moved to be here today. And to celebrate somebody who celebrates everybody all over the world all the time. And she just blows me away. So I'm not going to try to say any more, but 3 poems from Pools of June. The first one, Charm. My rooster sleeps the sleep of birds, free to fly the drifting sky. My hen divides her eggs in thirds and warms them with her loving eye. My peaceful flower beds begin, releasing spring and blossoming. My roof keeps cozy feelings in, while winter has her final fling. My windows tell the world to stay a distance from my silver sink. My door will make ye go away, or knocks or bells will make it blink. Repeat these stanzas like a spell, till ye are well, and all is well. Wind. From spring to summer is a slow strip tease. Gone first, the hat, the socks, the heavy pants, for lighter pants, bare arms, and soon romance of skin and air, the touches of a breeze who cries to me, I am your spirit lover. I know you, you are mine invisibly. I move the heavens for your company. We two unbound in love with one another. 1,000 new green leaves begin to wave and whisper near the water where I live. Wind sighs that she has everything to give in spring and tries with all her scent to save my flowers. Feel me better, lonely girl. Unwrap your limbs. The more I twirl. Handwritten. How drunk with longing one can be for hands, for her hot love, her knowing me, her hands. Cicadas buzz and hum in forest trees. Relentlessly the summer sweats my hands. They say she stayed away from human touch, a spirit pure, a sky. Then we hold hands. The insects, birds, and bark, the leaves in air, the leavening day, the leaving day, the memory of hands. How wild the dirt, how soon the soaking storm in my green canopy, the clock face, hands. The peace of lapping waves, the sobs of herons, the place in heaven, I may see her hands.
Thank you, Carolyn.
Thank you, Mary.
Great reading.
Thank
Great.
you.
Let's see. Next up is Samantha.
Hi, can you all hear me?
Yep.
Okay, hi, I'm Sam the Man. I'm an analyst at Goldman Sachs, and this is my first poetry reading. I've been writing poetry for several years, and it's kind of second nature by now. I have my MBA from the University of Pennsylvania, and I know that's not exactly an MFA, but they're more or less the same thing. I want to thank Meriam for having me and for all the support she has given poets over the years who are not me. So when Mary asked me to read today, I was kind of stunned because I'm not a lesbian and I've never done drag before. So I threw this thing together with the confidence of a mediocre white man, which is what I am. Okay, I'm gonna get out of that now, and I'm gonna read 3 poems by Meriam, one from Pools of June and 2 from the Lillian trilogy. And one of the things that has always really just blown me away about Mary is her sapphics. You'll see that these are, okay. Eos. Hopeless, asking hells in the sky, the storming mud pie slinger, hacking the weak to pieces, dawn of bitter, sickening, habit forming, fucked up deforming. My own Eos, covering turf with morning dewdrops, make my coverage and headlines charming, make my local personal times non-harming, nothing alarming. May your softness often restore, bring warming speeches, peaches, fields full of tiger lilies, larks, and not too terribly hard, your calming cloak, so disarming. This next one, Who Leaves Me Rootless, is, I read this and I was blown away, and I'm still blown away every time I read it. Who Leaves Me Rootless? You, all rich now, man at your cozy table, tete-a-tete, now gets every murmur, whisper, laugh, and sigh that dreamily leaves your lips. How sweetly your echo slays my heart, my hard-written heart, that beating harder, horsewhipped, stifles my voice. Now wordless, bee-stung, broke, deserted, I look at you and totally lose it. Fire snakes and slithers, now blisters, blazing skin, now eyes lose eyesight, now eardrums beat drums, sweating rain, now race in a thunder tremble, whirlwind tornado. Green as grass I'm taken, a prisoner chained in ravaged daisies. Where is my mind, my flower, petal plucked and rootless? Be brave now, Mary, dirt poor, but healthy. So spoiler alert, that's Mary's translation of Sappho's, oh my goodness, I'm forgetting the number of the fragment. But it's Mary's translation of Sappho's most famous fragment. And it
Phanetai.
Yeah. Sorry?
Is it Phanetai Moi? He appears to me.
Yes, the man at your side appears to, yeah. And it's, so when I first read it, it took me a moment to get what was going on. And then by the time I saw bee stung, I had to say, wait a minute. It was just such an experience reading this and figuring out that it was a translation, but even not knowing that it's a translation, this is just a truly great poem. Okay, so the last one, Hieroglyphics. Thunder's font is beautiful, dove-like, Sappho. Thunder sings and clings to me. Silence tells me you are mist or water, and rain is sprawling runes on the water. Where you are, so distant, your face in showers. Jade, tornado green, then a slate gray, changing, dull and gray, then fire and silver sparkles. Silence, where are you? Waves reflect you. Water is leaping higher, tree by tree. They lean towards you, weaker branches scorched by lightning, burnt by a gust of gorgeous thundering swallows.
Thank you, Sam the man. Hey, Nemo.
Yeah.
Josh had a computer issue, so we have to skip him for now and go on to Markus, excuse me.
Okay. He's going to come back?
I hope so.
All right.
The first poem is from the Mary's chapbook that shares a name with the poem. The Countess of Flatbroke. I shun the man-made world and stay at home. This suits the world since I am very queer. I eat my spinach quiche and write a poem. I like my chair and bed. It's pleasant here. Except one little problem, namely cash, which threatens to undo my little life. The bank account is headed for a crash. The fridge is empty. Where's my working wife? What happens when a poet lives beyond the time she would have died, except for fate? A strange career, but not designed to bond somebody to a steady job this late. I have no skills in generating wealth. I've spent my time recovering my health. I want to just thank Mary for inviting me to be part of this. I'm really grateful. This is from Girly Calendar, Elaine. Elaine, I loved your face, your hands, your voice, your touch, your mouth, your teeth, your toss of light, sweet, aching hair, the winding way you came across the river to my bed. Our small town fame grew long along the muddy Delaware. Then we were swept away, our slant affair not strong enough to swim against the tide, but stuck in narrow streets and forced to hide, till you, Elaine, left me alone, unknown. And this is from Conjuring My Leafy Muse. A Tragedy of Flowers. She says she is my mother. I'm her daughter. I take a photo of her by the water, blueberry picking, and her smile flowers. But she abandons me in darker hours. And so I search in the surrounding fields for any mother love the landscape yields. There is a farmer with his summer yields. I visit him as if I were his daughter, then nestle in the hollows of his fields beside a tiny trickling stream of water. And I weep there long and hard for hours, twisting chains and whistles out of flowers. There is a garden of my mother's flowers. I wonder if the fragrances it yields will tranquilize my mind for all the hours I have left to be my mother's daughter. Or should I cross the muddy river water or turn around and traipse the same old fields? A herd of deer is bounding through the fields, fleeing, afraid, although I offered flowers. They vanish in a hurricane of water, and nothing in the sad sky weeping yields to prayers and wishes from a boggy daughter. How much longer, harder are the hours? A storm's been threatening in the east for hours, and now I see it move across the fields. It slashes lightning near the house's daughter. My porthole's thunderstorm advances, flowers, retreats, the way my mother never yields a drop from all her barrels full of water. My mother's flowers drink her howling water. She caters to the flowers' needs for hours. The creeper weaves, the blossom bends and yields, and all around my mother's garden, fields the farmer plows bow neatly to her flowers. I wonder if she notices her daughter, or if her daughter is a boat of water sinking for hours, or a clutch of flowers strewing the fields until the tempest yields.
Thank you, Marcia.
Wow.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you.
Hey, Josh, you're back. You gotta unmute.
Sorry, so you guys skipped me, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
I know you.
Okay. Hi. Yes. Thanks. Sorry about that. My computer.
You look fabulous, by the way.
Stay again?
You look fabulous, by the way.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate that. So do you, and so does everybody. And Mary, thank you for inviting me to do this, and Nemo, thank you for inviting me to do this. I really am very happy to be a part of it. I'm going to read 3 poems, and I'm going to try. This is what I was setting this up before, and it caused my computer to crash. So I hope that doesn't happen. It probably should. It won't. It's been acting funny lately, but I hope it won't. Okay, so I thought I would read first. I think maybe I'll read Dictionary of Owl first. Dictionary of Owl. This appeared originally in poetry, and then I took it and asked Mary to let me reprint it in a magazine I edit poetry for called Root Quarterly, and she was kind enough to let me do that. I love this poem. Dictionary of Owl. Who cares about the red bud tree? Its flowers half black, half pink from winter's April freeze. Who cares who lives halfway or dies too soon? The blue jay's baby squirming on bare ground, the agonies of blood, the frigid breeze shaking the fragile sense of April showers. Who cares who craves the heated pools of June, the lake of boaters buzzing by or drowned? Two vultures meet me at my open door, scanning for carrion. The stink of spasms, the sky gods pecking rotting flesh for food. Who cares if this strange order ends in good, or if the chickadee lands in the chasms of endless carelessness forevermore? The second poem, Allegory of the Known and Unknown. Let me ask you something, Mary. Do you prefer I say minestrone or minestrone?
Minestrone.
Okay, thank you. I was trying to, well, I'll just read it.
Okay.
Thank you. Allegory of the Known and Unknown. Down the driveway, a deer in the woods, and we look at each other, sunlit nose black and wet. Crows peck a bloody opossum on the road. I am to leave without breakfast, return near noon for minestrone. At the supermarket, Michael signs to me about a trip to Florida soon. He teaches me to sign, wow, great. Michael smiles and signs and speaks all at once. Michael carries my bags. Michael teaches me to sign, take care and hello and goodbye. Driving to town, clusters of naked ladies. At the little market, a big bouquet of naked ladies. Paddy invites me to her party to walk through her field of naked ladies. Christine, the oblivious checkout girl, rings me up for one parsley bunch, but there are 2 bunches in the bag. At the moment, Christine forgets the name for tomatoes. She wears sparkling gauzy blue scarves, clothing art, the potatoes, the celery. At the farmer's market, Andrew has carrots. His wife, Madeline, almost due, he says, in a snowstorm. Driving a narrow road on a steep wooded hill, the window open, it's so warm. A fox appears to my left. About 10 feet from me, on a clear hill above me, a beautiful color and shape, alert, graceful, lovely. I stop and stare. The fox stares back at me, into my eyes. I skip the post office. What could be there? On the road home, a feeling strikes me of utter aloneness. How is this possible? I drag in the bags, work again at the screen for hours, in the kitchen again, work for hours. I want to see you. You have come to my home in the mountains. You have come to my home by the sea. You have come to my home in a clean city of enlightened citizens with advanced degrees in organic gardens. I've been reading Odd Girl Out on the couch. You've been taking a taxi from the airport. Dusk soothes the space under the vaulted ceilings of my living room. A fragrant breeze from the terrace stirs the shades with a slight sigh. There you are. And the last poem I'll read is For Sally's Sake, which I think maybe you could see as a companion piece to the elegy that Mary read in her segment.
Yeah.
For Sally's Sake. She drives the empty country lane singing about her Sally Jane. She turns the wheel and taps the brake, singing a tune for Sally's sake. Around the bend and up the hill, Sally can't sing, so Mary will. She taps the brake and turns the wheel, singing inside her automobile. She drives the empty country lane, singing about her Sally Jane. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. Beautiful.
Thank you. Beautiful.
We're all beautiful.
Yeah, that's for sure.
So that leaves, okay, Siham.
Looks like she.
Siham, you're, there you go. Yeah, there you
I
go.
was muted somehow. I didn't know that. Okay. This is. Oh, excuse me. Thank you, Mary, for inviting me, and for Nemo too for inviting me. Rita, sorry, and it's. I cannot. Everyone has said everything I'm thinking, but Mary's to me like a mentor. I owe so much to her. She means so much to me. She doesn't even, I think, realize how much. And so I just, almost every poem could be the poem to read. But I chose 3 from Pools of June just because this is the launch of Pools of June, and because I couldn't leave the poems that I read. So, that I chose. So I'll begin with Dear Heart. And I'm using a phone, so if I, seem awkward or something, I have one hand on the book and one hand on the phone. Okay. Dear Heart, all the times I misunderstood, forgive me. I could go downhill in a sled with sorrow. Snow, my hero, build me a fort this winter made of your hollow hub of pulsing chambers, your crimson center. Greenless branches stick me like Venus arrows. Why, my Valentine, did she leave me stricken, frozen, and slighted? Once she slid her fingers inside my velvet cushion, knit my cap, and embroidered borders, dressed me all the way to the silver heavens. Oh, she was lovely, who could heal a storm through the tangled briars, who could soothe a flood through the scalding trials, who could kiss an oath through the fallen oak trees, terrace the traumas. Ghazal of Going, and I love ghazals, so I had to pick a ghazal. This is one of the greatest. All of her poems are just beautiful. She rises like a secret meant for me alone, and tilts the shattered glass of light at sea alone, where light on waves lays a mosaic and a moan. Serious birds descend unhappily alone. Repeat the secret monthly, kiss her collarbone, and when she travels blindly, let her be alone. The lifelong lonely ones, still listening for the phone, will live alone on mountains, silently alone. How pleasing the tiny point in time of being known. Sun on the golden leaves of one lit tree alone. She weakens through unpeopled dreams at night, the groan of old pianos sounding middle C alone. Look to the kitchen where she's grinding stone on stone to see the habitat of bee Marie alone. And I just, how pleasing the tiny point in time of being known to me is just like some hugely profound thing. But anyway, I could stop virtually anywhere. The last one is Mother Tree. Not knowing tree in all her innocence, stands in her stand, for standing is her way, mingling her roots with roots, her leaves so dense and canopy, they almost block the day. Inside this tree's green palm, a girl at play swings on her swing, her bare legs light in air, the motion soothing her and her dismay. the kindest time her life has known and rare. The tree inside her mind is like a prayer that says this moment will forever be remembered. Now the sun sets in a flare and sunlight floods her chapel of the tree. Her swinging stops, the field's long shadows grow. She leaves the leaves who may or may not know. It's you just so many of these poems brought me, and I can see others, to tears. It's just everything is so moving, Mary. You just can't. I can't say it enough. Okay. Very much.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Mary, on your new book, Pools of June. I just love it. And congratulations also to Nemo and Julio for doing such a great job on the book to make it as beautiful on the outside as it is on the inside. And also thank you for inviting me here to read and to celebrate the publication of this book. I am sorry that I couldn't be there live, but I'm beaming in from my cell here at the cloistered convent of curious souls, Discalced, and I'm happy to be reading 3 poems for you today. The first of which is Farewell, Farcia. Don't try my patience, gentle telephone. Go split your wires, crack your handset bone. Go digital, go slow, go beat a drum. Go ring yourself to death. I will not come. I'll hear instead the doves cry overhead. So still I'll stay, she'll surely think I'm dead to love. But no, I hear the loving doves that fit together like 2 hands in gloves. The doves fly west to east and east to west. But why? Because doves know love has no rest. The doves compose me with their loving song, transforming into goodness what is wrong. And I remain below, a single one, like every other single in the sun, taking a walk in the dim Doveland wood. Farewell, Farcia. Farce will bring no good. The bees rage. I would find things I could use, even things not for children my age. It was how I said the things I meant. It's where my pigeon years were spent, mucking about in the backyard ooze, making mud casseroles with a tin toy stove, where I retreated to boil the bees' rage. This ivy leaf, what a garnish it will make. Let me glue it closed with pigeon spittle. Here's a faucet by the chimney bricks. Here are blades of grass and bite-sized sticks. Every pretty stone, just the right kind of little. How much frost, how much flare will it take to turn my sickly pigeon into dove? And finally, a lovely little villanelle called Trees. I love this screen of oak and maple trees, hiding me from the boaters on the lake. I love the fattened leaves in summer's breeze, singing the forest full of symphonies. When I have any love life left to make, I love this screen of oak and maple trees. When burdened by my sad old memories, the screeching hawk, the tick, the lying snake, I love the fattened leaves in summer's breeze, their veiny palms and festive shapes, the bees and hummingbirds that sip them as they shake. I love this screen of oak and maple trees, the way most people love their families. For having none, and for my longing's sake, I love the fattened leaves in summer's breeze. I listen to the play of green degrees, of pitch and key, the greens the breezes wake, forming this screen of oak and maple trees, bearing the fattened leaves in summer's breeze. Congratulations, Mary, and thank you once again for having me.
Okay, that's it. We could unmute ourselves and give a rousing chorus of thanks to the readers and to Mary.
Okay.